Bristol Community College, Mathematics with Dan Avedikian, Math 119, Fundamental Statistics, Section 9.3, Problem 5. This is Section 9.3, Problem 5. It says a study of 100 current BCC students showed that 90 had some Portuguese background. Construct a 99% confidence interval for the proportion of BCC students that have some Portuguese background. So this is a confidence interval for a population proportion. So let's start with a formula for that. That will be p hat plus or minus the square root of, you have a fraction in the numerator, you have p hat times 1 minus p hat over n, then you close those parentheses, times z sub c. So we have to fill this all in and then do the math. So first of all, what is p hat? P hat is equal to r over n, where r is the number of desired results for what you're studying. That would be 90. 90 of the students in your study had some Portuguese in their background. And n is the total number of observations, which for this problem would be 100. You observe 100 students. So now that's a fraction, 90 over 100. I can see in my head that that reduces to 0.9 or 0.9. If you don't see it, just use a few seconds on your calculator to the numerator, divide by the denominator, equals, and your calculator will tell you that it's 0.9. So that's p hat. So we can go ahead and start filling some of this in. So p hat is 0.9 plus or minus, and let me keep my parentheses going, the square root of, so now we have a fraction in the numerator p hat, which is 0.9, times 1 minus p hat, so 1 minus 0.9. In the denominator n, our total number of observances, which is 100. And that takes care of my square root. Times z sub c, that's the confidence coefficient. So there are 3 common intervals for 99%. The confidence coefficient would be 2.58. So that's how the formula fills in. We can go ahead and start doing the math. Now, to start it, we have to do the work under the square root, specifically the work in parentheses. So let's simplify that a little bit. So I'll have 0.9 plus or minus the square root of, so I'll still have a 0.9 in front, but now in my parentheses, 1 minus 0.9 will be 0.1. So 0.9 times 0.1 in the numerator, and I still have 100 in the denominator. And the 2.58 is still at the end. So I can simplify a little bit further. Let's move over to the right a little bit. I am going to have 0.9 plus or minus square root of, now in the numerator, I have 0.9 times 0.1. 0.9 times 0.1 will be 0.09, and I still have 100 in the denominator. And again, I feel comfortable doing this in my head. If you feel that you need to use a calculator, by all means use a calculator. Don't forget on the end we still have a 2.58. Now, the next thing I can do is reduce this fraction inside of the square root. I have a 0.09 in the numerator of a fraction, 100 in the denominator. You'll probably want to use your calculator for that, so you'll enter the numerator of the fraction first, 0.09, divide by the denominator, divide by 100. And your calculator will tell you that is 0.0009. So let's fill that in for the next part of the problem. So I'm going to do 0.9 plus or minus. Don't forget, we haven't taken the square root yet. You still have a square root. And it's the square root of 0.0009 times 2.58. Now I can go ahead and finally do that square root and get rid of it in my formula. So 0.9 plus or minus. So the square root of 0.0009 is 0.03. Now the square root is gone. And again, you'll probably want to do that in your calculator. Again, I have a trick where I can do it without a calculator, but the first set of parentheses now I have 0.03. I still have 2.58 in the other parentheses. Now, finally, I can go ahead and multiply 0.03 times 2.58. So I still have the 0.9 in front, the far left, plus or minus 0.03 times 2.58 is 0.0774. Now, I finally have one number after the plus and minus, so I can split this into a separate minus and a separate plus to get the low end and the high end of my confidence interval. So for the minus, I usually write the minus first on the left. You can write it in the other order. So I'm going to do 0.9 minus 0.0774. That's going to be the lower end of my interval. To 0.9 plus 0.0774. The same two numbers, but with a plus sign. Now, for the lower end, when I do that subtraction, which again, you probably want to do with a calculator, 0.9 minus 0.0774 is 0.8226. To the upper end, 0.9 plus 0.0774 is 0.9774. So now I have the low end and high end. Now what does this mean? This means I am 99% sure that if I studied all the students at Bristol Community College, that the percentage that have some Portuguese in their background, I'm 99% sure by only studying 100, that if I studied all of them, somewhere between approximately 82% and almost 98% would have some Portuguese in their background. 99% sure for all of them based on only studying 100 students.